Welcome to Michigan Sports Media Network. Today I have our lead Tigers reporter, Brad Thompson, with us, and our lead Red Wings reporter, James Gullett, as well. All right, well, then we will go ahead and pass it right back to you for our Red Wings report.
Awesome. I will start with a simple hey, hey, Hockey Town. And sorry about the
Oh
slow
boy.
start, but I figured that I would start my coverage with the same intensity that the Red Wings brought to the ice, which was pretty much none. So, yeah, there you have it. They fell 2-1 to the Carolina Hurricanes, who were 3-6 their last 9 games. And to put it bluntly, they just got outplayed. There was no controversial calls this time. There was no really fluky goals. They just got outplayed. They got outshot. Carolina had more block shots. Carolina won more faceoffs. We just flat got outplayed by a team that was on quite a bit of a cold streak. So I was hoping that with the controversy that ended the Blue Jackets game and the outdoor game at the Shoe at Ohio State Stadium, they would rally and use that to motivate them and kind of come out of the gates like a bat out of hell. And I kind of feel like they just barely came out at all. Um, they had opportunity. They fell down 2-0. They finally scored to make it 2-1. They had multiple power plays. They've had 2.5 minutes at the end of the game with an empty net after they pulled Lyon for the extra skater. 2.5 minutes of 6-on-5, and they just could not find the back of the net. Overall, they looked. Sorry. Overall, they kind of just looked slow, lethargic. I was hoping for a lot more energy, not only after, like I said, the big game moment, but after the All-Star break. I know some players like Larkin and Raymond played in the Four Nations tournament. During that tournament, you almost unanimously, all the announcers were saying how playing with different players and playing for your nation might rejuvenate people. And obviously, the players, unlike most sports, actually truly cared about this kind of all-star-esque game situation, and they were trying their ass off, and they were talking to each other on the bench, sharing tips, and I expected a little bit more finesse and maybe a couple new moves, and yeah, they just came out slow. Towards the end of the game, the only thing even remotely controversial was Stahl, the captain of the Carolina Hurricanes, somewhat, and you could tell on the video it was accidentally, but somewhat elbowed Lucas Raymond, one of our star players, in the head. And the Wings had more fight in the scuffle trying to defend their player than they did the whole 60 minutes of hockey. So I wanted to know kind of where that energy was during the game because it just wasn't there. I'm hoping with Friday being the trade deadline that we will make a move and one of more significance than the move they made today, which will segue me into a massive, massive trade amongst the league. The Wings are barely involved, but are involved. The Tampa Bay Lightning will get Yanni Gug- Goodridge, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and a 2026 fifth round pick. The Seattle Kraken will get Michael Yzerman, a 25 second round pick, a 26 first round pick, and a 27 first round pick, making that a total of two firsts, a second, and a player. And the Wings' involvement in this trade is they take on 25% of uh, Guard's remaining cap space, which is 1.29 million to make Tampa Bay be able to fit under the cap. And for taking on some of that cap space, we are awarded a 2025 fourth round pick. So basically, we just gave up some cap space to buy a fourth round pick. His contract is up at the end of the year, so at the end of the year, all of that money falls off. It's not something that's going to be lingering on our books for very long. But in a trade that involves multiple players, multiple first round picks, multiple, second round, one second round pick, correction. We get a fourth and we don't get a player. We don't help our team today. Um, in hockey, it's not like football where these draft picks are instant impact players. They sit in the minors for several years. I made a joke on Twitter that we might see whoever we draft with this pick in 2030. So hopefully we can, look forward to that a little bit. Um, but in a trade deadline that actually has first round picks, if we wanted to do the rebuild route, if we wanted to get rid of contracts that are going to end at the end of the year, if we wanted to take on a bad contract but gain a first round pick, something, just something to help this team. At this point, I mean, the deadline's not until Friday, but at this point, we just use up a little bit of cap space for a future fourth. And, I mean, in terms of the trade, that's all that we have done so far. In other roster news, it has not been officially worded. However, multiple reporters, including the official reporter for the Detroit Free Press, mentions Michael Rasmussen should be back for our next game. He has missed the last 3 games in which we have gone 0-3. He is a solid player who I don't think gets the credit he deserves. He doesn't put up a lot of stats. He's not the flashiest player. He just kind of gets the job done. And in totality, the stat that matters most is winning. In games that he has played in since we drafted him in 2017, he's made his debut in 2018. Games he played in, we are 158 and 160, only 2 games under 500. For reference, in games that he's missed via injury or we sent him back down because he was up and down and he was a prospect, the Wings are 48 and 90. So we're 2 games under 500 when he's in the lineup, and we are 42 games under 500 without him, including 0-3 the last 3. So he should be in the lineup by all reports. That hopefully will give us a spark because, like I said, he's not a big goal scorer. He doesn't have his name up in lights. If you go to a game, I doubt you see his jersey in the crowd. But maybe there's something to that, and maybe that should be fixed here in the future. In addition to that, we called up Carter Mazur, who is a rookie. This is going to be his absolute NHL debut. We drafted him 70th overall in 2021. He has never played an NHL game, and he was born in Jackson, Michigan. So, like Dylan Larkin, he actually is a Michigan guy who is playing for his hometown team. And I always love those kind of stories, in addition to, or I should say, especially when they've earned it. It's not, hey, this guy's from Michigan, let's give him a shot. He's a very talented prospect. I was kind of shocked with the playoff expanded rosters that we did not call him up towards the end of the season to get his feet wet a little bit, but he's here now, so it is what it is. And there's going to be a lot of excitement in the air to at least watch his debut. And with between him and Rasmussen coming back, maybe that will finally give the Wings a little jolt of energy. And then lastly, to make room for Rasmussen on the roster, the Red Wings have waived forward Christian Fischer, which he is eligible upon clearing waivers to go to Grand Rapids in our minor league system. But in my personal opinion, I would have probably put someone else there. Fisher is another guy, in my opinion, quite like Rasmussen, where he doesn't light up the scoreboard. He's not going to wow you if you just look at box scores. But if you turn the game on, he's the one digging pucks out of the corner. He's the one being physical. He's the one giving that, like Aiden Hutchinson, nonstop motor action. So I am a little bummed about that, but business is business, and I will say his numbers don't look the best, so I somewhat understand the call. I do not hear you.
Can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Thanks, James, for the information. One thing I will say on the trade front, I feel like this is a move that the Red Wings made, 3, 4 years ago. But it seems like in the last 2 years, we've been kind of making moves to win. And this is just kind of a confusing one for an outsider who's not a huge Red Wings fan. I mean, I've watched a couple games this year. But just in general, it seems kind of like I mean, it's not a bad move, don't get me wrong, but it feels like a step back, um, metaphorically, I guess, in that way. And then the other thing, which you mentioned about Rasmussen, is I think those guys matter a lot more in hockey than other sports, right? Those like grinders, those hustle guys, they add more because hockey, like you're only, let's say on average, I don't know what the real average is, but let's say you're scoring 3 goals a night. That means you're gonna have 3 goals scored and a couple assists. If you're a guy that makes the impact outside of the scoreboard, I think that matters more in hockey than it would in a basketball or a football specifically, because guys are kind of doing everything. But with that said, Brad, the floor is yours.
They were flat last night. I think McClellan is going to hold them to standards. I mean, you do that in the course of 82 games. I get that. But, I get a little salty here, but that trade, I mean, is just like, okay, Tampa, Seattle, why don't you just, run a train on us right now? We're just here for gratification. What the fuck is that? All right. This is it, man. If they do this, oh, we're gonna have a low profile here at the deadline. I'm out. I'm sorry. I know I was talking. I'm out. This team is stale. This team is stagnant. This team needs a major shakeup. Uh, Outside of Raymond and Sider, you want to do something big, Stevie. You see what you can get for Larkin. All right. And I know that's blasphemous, and I know everybody who's watching this on Twitter, I'm gonna have to get or block or just wear it, but something's got to happen. Maybe Larkin is a little bit over the top, but it's crazy. You've got to do something that's going to, make a dent, something that's going to register, because right now this team is not going. They're not. If they stay status quo and they make a little tinker, they're not going to make the playoffs. And I got news for them. The way the Tigers and Lions and Pistons are playing, they're going to end up being the Detroit Pistons all the way up to this year. They are going to become irrelevant. This is not, as far as much as this is Hockey Town, it's not if you're not winning. They will be an afterthought. So make something, shake something up. Even if you shake it up and it does not work, I think the fans are still going to say, hey, we tried. But if you go into after the trading deadline with this roster and you're out, all bets are off with me. So,
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Brad. With that being said, James, do you have anything to add?
Not necessarily add, but one thing I had in my prep that I wanted to get out there before the trade happened, and I had to try to learn all these guys' names that I've never seen before because they haven't played on my team. Um, with the loss last night, I mean, the season's not over, but we did fall out of the playoff spot. So if the playoffs were today, we are not in. So we are on the cusp. There are, I believe, 7 teams within 4 points of each other fighting for 2 spots. It kind of reminds me of uh, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Minnesota for football battling for that number 1 seed. It's like we win, but everyone else wins, so we don't gain any ground. There are 7 teams just back and forth, and coming out 0-3 from the break, and just not even looking good too. It's not like we're losing these tight games or, you know, we got beat fair and square soundly. I don't think there's a point in the game last night that Carolina was even worried about us. And if we don't get our heads out of our backside soon, this season might be gone.
yeah, it's guys, if they don't I mean make the playoffs. Make the playoffs or shake it up. Shake it up, don't make the playoffs, you tried. Don't shake it up, don't make the playoffs. You're on your own.
Yeah, I
You just
totally get that. And that's a good point.